And also to help make sense of what is happening at this moment in the Russia-Ukraine war, we joined this broadcast by retired Admiral Michael Rogers, who's a former director of the National Security Agency and also a former chief Central Security Service. Admiral Rogers, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on this broadcast in WION. And let me in fact start off by asking you this. You know, the fact that this Russia-Ukraine conflict has now become such an intense confrontation of drones, where these new kinds of drones are being used by the Russians, these thermobaric drones. In your assessment, do you think this is what has been giving the Russians the edge, considering the new kind of weaponry that they're able to field as this war has evolved?
I wouldn't say that it's giving the Russians the edge, but I would say the Russians increasingly view drones, ballistic missiles, new advancements in munitions and bombs as the primary way for them to overcome the fact that on the battlefield itself, they have been unable to achieve strategic advantage over Ukraine.
Interesting you say that they haven't been able to gain strategic advantage. A lot of people would in fact turn around and say that in the naval war which had been ongoing, the Ukrainians were able to in many ways destroy a lot of the Black Sea fleet of the Russians. But on the ground, though, it is the Russians who seem to have a clear advantage, as they seem to be progressing, even though the West had been giving weapons to the Ukrainians.
So it does appear that on the ground, the Russians are making progress. Now, it's very slow, but it does appear as if incrementally they have been able to achieve some measure, but not at a strategic level, which is why I say I think the Russians have viewed drones increasingly as a vehicle to have that kind of strategic impact, to project force much deeper into Ukraine, to put at risk populations, targets, infrastructure, and military capabilities much deeper into Ukraine, and drones let them do that.
And my final question to you is a political one. Now, Donald Trump had always been saying that he can in fact bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war immediately as soon as you take charge of the White House. But what we've been hearing from Trump of late, since he's had that phone call with Vladimir Putin, where he's now said that probably Putin is not interested in negotiations for peace because he believes that he's winning on the battlefront. In your assessment, will the American approach under Donald Trump now change towards the Ukraine war?
So the short answer is I don't know. But I think clearly the assessment that the Russians were inclined to actually try to end the war right now through some sort of ceasefire and then negotiated settlement, I think what we're seeing is that is not in fact the case right now. The Russians aren't there. And it's not by chance that the Russians launched the day before, on Sunday, they launched the greatest drone numbers that they'd done in the entire war. And that was the day before the phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Putin.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Admiral Rogers, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.